Hey Dennis,
Hey, Fessel. Thanks.
how's it going, man?
Nice
How
to
was
see
your
you again.
weekend?
Oh my goodness, my weekend was amazing. We had beautiful weather. Still kind of locked down, but we had prepared, so we made some really good food, and we were able to get to the mountain and do our hiking and trail running. And I am going to say, I'm very happy to announce this. I have now shaved 30 seconds off of my 2 mile run. So kudos to me.
That's impressive stuff, man. That's impressive. So you're not just a power lifter, but you're also a good runner, if I may say.
Well, I run. I don't know if I would qualify it as good. What I like to say with that is, I'm 5'6". I have a 28-inch inseam, so I'm a pretty short and stout guy. And I wasn't necessarily built for steam, but I definitely can go the distance. So I'm kind of more of a mountain goat.
Great.
But breaking land
And
speed records is
and
probably not in my future.
and you go running early morning, correct?
At sunrise, best time of day. Sunrise. It's the start of a new day. You get to see the earth kind of waking up, and yeah, I love that. It's truly my favorite part of the day. It really helps me to be intentional and deliberate, and sets me up for success the rest of the day. So yeah, how about your weekend?
Interesting. You mentioned that you see Earth waking up.
Yeah,
My weekends are lazy as always, man. Especially because Ramadan fasting, so it's just slumber the whole day. And since it's lockdown, I'm locked in, can't leave the house, so it's just absolute slumber. Wake up in the middle of the day, hoping that half the day is gone. But you mentioned you see the Earth waking up, Dennis.
yeah.
Tell me about it, man. The mountain. What does it say to you?
Well, it's really interesting. I'm able, as I hear everything waking up, I'm able to kind of, I see the sunrise. Everything's kind of getting lit up, and I'm able to see the dirt. I'm able to actually smell the dirt. I hear the sounds of the birds and the insects. So it's just, it's a new day. It's exciting. Whereas, nighttime, we're finishing up, we're going to bed. I think, for me, it's always like, am I going to wake up in the morning? So I wake up in the morning and there's another sunrise, and it's just, what a blessing to be alive and to be able to wake up with nature, which is interesting that we're actually going to be talking about nature today.
Tell us about it, man.
Yeah, so I'm actually really excited for today's conversation. Um, I'm actually really excited about today's conversation because we're going to be meeting with a colleague of mine and a good friend of mine, Dr. Sylvie Creamer, who is an environmental psychologist, and she will be here talking to us. Hey, there she is. Hey, Sylvie. So this is Dr. Creamer,
Hi.
everybody. She is an environmental psychologist, a good friend of mine, a colleague, and she's going to be talking to us today from about the environment and how humans impact the environment and whether or not our role within this pandemic. So, Dr. Creamer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Faisal. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you, Sylvie. Thank you really, for taking the time. But before we get into the serious conversation, I have to comment on the wall behind you. It is phenomenal. You have to come see this. I need my wife to take a look at this. Come see this.
Wait, let me see how I
Check
can.
check this out.
That's amazing.
This is her eco-friendly kitchen.
Yes, love it.
Isn't that amazing?
Where is she from?
She is from Germany, but she is in Ecuador.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I think
Hi.
that Sylvie is truly an
So
international.
nice, a yellow color.
She's definitely an international person. She's originally from Germany and currently living in Ecuador. But I believe your business is actually based in Switzerland. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
But how much work in Switzerland do you do compared to like the rest of the world?
Well, since we're based in Switzerland, that's where some of the contacts are. And we're actually working on a COVID-19 campaign in Switzerland right now. So I'm part of a consultancy company called Ranas. And Ranas is also the model, the behavior change model we're basing all our work on. And yeah, it's we're working about behavior change, so changing people's behavior when it comes to hygiene behavior, when it comes to environmental behavior, and COVID is obviously something very related and very influenced by behavior. So we're currently working on a campaign in Switzerland, and we're also working on we're starting a campaign in Zimbabwe, actually, in a refugee camp, and we're working on setting up more projects, because this is also, I mean, we have the short-term effects of it right now, and actually in Europe, some of the effects or some of the regulations going down at the moment, but the illness itself and the contagion and all of that will be a part of our lives for much longer.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and that's kind of what we've been talking about on this broadcast is how, taking care of ourselves now during the pandemic, and then preparing for a post-COVID world once the world kind of starts waking up. So Sylvie, the interesting thing is, living in Ecuador, we see that Ecuador has really been hit bad by COVID-19, and since you're on the ground there, can you kind of tell us what's going on there in Ecuador?
Okay, so I think there's a few different things involved here. And one of the things that you're probably talking about and that a lot of people have asked me about is the pictures of dead bodies on the street, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that has not been my personal experience.
Okay.
And from what I hear other people talking about it, the issue has been mostly that the infrastructure in a lot of places is not good enough to deal with what's happening right now. So when maybe funerary services have had were just able to deal with everything as it was, now they're not able to pick up all the dead people anymore, and they're not able to cremate everyone and to bury everyone in time. So what happens is that no matter, I mean, people are still dying even apart from COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's still just regular deaths, and because the families do not know what to do with them, those bodies have been put on the street partly, and this is where these very intense images are coming from. But
So if I may interfere, are you suggesting that what we're seeing on the internet press, if I may call it internet press or whatever media, is unfortunately focusing incorrectly on the problem, and it's getting amplified? Because frankly, I was terrified at at those pictures. I'm like, oh my God, there was a lot of websites and a lot of news, in fact, reputed news websites are saying, oh, people hide the bodies in their cars like someone's sleeping, drive them out of town and dump them because bodies are falling off of cars. So you're saying it's not that bad?
Well, first of all, I don't know if I'm the most qualified person because I haven't been in the worst places, right? But from the way I understand the situation is that obviously there is a situation. There are more people dying than there regularly are, but it's been accelerated by a lack of infrastructure to deal with the bodies. So yeah, I mean, it is quite horrific that they had to do mass graves, or that you were seeing, or maybe still that there still are places where there's dead bodies in the street, and it is a problem. But the problem is not only, like, not all the dead bodies you see are necessarily COVID patients, right? There's still a normal amount of people dying. It's just that they don't know what to do with the bodies, with the additional bodies. Am I explaining myself?
Yes, you are. Clear. Absolutely. So yes, we understand that there is a COVID situation in Ecuador, but there's more than the COVID situation. There's an infrastructure situation there.
Yes, exactly. So the hospitals and the funerary services, so the whole health system is not prepared to deal with what's happening. And that's why the situation has aggravated because of that.
Okay.
So-
Go on, Dennis, please
Oh,
go
I was
on.
just going to ask. You know, like in my experience, it seems like you know, these types of crises or these challenges that we face, they oftentimes kind of expose cracks or weak links in our system. Would you say that that's what is kind of what you're talking about there in Ecuador with the infrastructure?
And I think worldwide, I mean, worldwide, there's a question, why can some countries deal with this and are not reporting full hospitals, even though they have higher COVID numbers? And other countries have a lot higher contagion and more deaths. So that's what I'm wondering. Is like, why is there a higher number of deaths in the United States when it's a first world country, as opposed to some countries that are less wealthy but have been able to deal with it better? Or at least it looks like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you know, if I'll just take that one for speaking from the U.S. perspective is, you know, I think again, I don't know that you can ever be fully prepared for something of this magnitude, and so I try to take, you know, our leaders, and I try to extend some grace towards them in that, you know, you know, we get overwhelmed very quickly, and so you know, I think what it comes down to, I mean, we can talk arrogance, we can talk stupidity. I will just say that I think what's happened here in the United States is, you know, I don't think we really thought it was going to affect us the way that it was. It was very early on, compared to like SARS and MERS, you know, as opposed to Ebola. And it just seemed like we were constantly comparing and contrasting. We still are. Well, Ebola killed this many, and it was way worse. But you know, we're still. I think we're up over 60,000 deaths here in the U.S. And here in my state, we're starting to open back up, and yet we just had over 300 new confirmed cases on Friday. So I think it's for, you know, at least what I'm seeing is, I think people are trying to figure it out. I think if we let the politicians play politics, and then people like us actually like rolling up our sleeves and digging in, is it's really practicing the social distancing, wearing your face mask and so forth, which is, you know, now it's become a political thing here in the U.S. So I think politics has played a major part in that. Fessel?
Yeah, so you're saying, you know, they're figuring it out, you know, I understand the figuring out part, but the key question we're not trying to figure out is, why does this keep happening? You know, Spanish flu, the Black Death, Ebola, SARS, MERS, and now COVID. What are we doing wrong? Is this just God's wrath, if you're going to say? Or are we doing something so ridiculous that nature keeps striking us down? So, Sylvie, you know, please tell me, what's wrong with our behavior? Are we causing this? Or are we doing everything right and nature is saying, you know, I'm going to screw you? Or nature doesn't screw us for no reason. What triggers these massive events?
Okay, so I think we're mixing a few things here. And one thing is globalization, without judging whether it's good or bad, but globalization makes us have more contact with each other, which I think is just influencing whether there's a countrywide epidemic or a pandemic, right? Because I mean, 100 years ago, or maybe 50 years ago, this would have affected China and maybe parts of Asia, and that would have been probably pretty much it. But nowadays, where people fly one day here and then the next day there, and we're all in so much contact with each other, then you just create this kind of like a situation where you can contage each other a lot more easily, without even judging whether that's like the globalization itself and the contact that we have and that we're able to have is a good thing or a bad thing. Just stating a fact. And then as when it comes to whether nature is telling us or not, I cannot tell you. I don't know. But what I know for sure from an environmental standpoint is that we have continually over the last decades, let's use a crass word, abused Earth, right?
Uh-huh.
We have been very unconscious about our resources, about pollution, about the way we produce, about the way we travel, and about the way we enjoy being on Earth. And it's, for me, like, ever since I started even thinking about the environment, this has been like the biggest and most impressive topic of all. We need nature to survive. There's no question about it, right? We need to eat, we need to breathe, we need to drink water, and it needs to be non-toxic. And if the air and the water and earth, and with it food, is becoming toxic, we're destroying our own nurturing ground, right? So I think apart from the pandemic, and I don't know how related it is to that, but we're definitely doing something with Earth that is not good for our health in general.
I think we've fallen into the delusion that the universe can't survive without us, and that we can just suck the hell and heaven out of this earth, and nothing's going to happen. Dennis, what do you think?
Well, the thing I wonder about is whether or not that what comes into my mind is stewardship and the concept of stewardship. And for me, it's are we being good stewards of the land? Are we being good stewards of the environment? And so I wonder when Sylvie was talking about the travel and how we kind of take it for granted. I'm almost wondering if we've developed some sort of a complacency to where we just don't necessarily think about those things. It's kind of I mean, I think for a lot of people, it's kind of like this. I'm not going to take and step out into traffic because a car will kill me right now. But smoking a cigarette, my death, it's not going to be good, but it might be 20 years down the road. And I have a chance to quit. So I think we always just kind of think that we're going to get more opportunities and more opportunities. And I think we're kind of seeing right now that sometimes those opportunities don't always last. And I think the other part for me is, as humans, do we really learn from our past? Do we really learn from past events? I don't know. Sylvie, what are your thoughts on do we actually, as human beings, do we actually learn from our own history?
So I think what's very frustrating for every activist, every environmentally conscious person, every person who wants to do something politically or on a society basis, is that it's a very slow moving frame, where it's like we as humans are slow moving in our process, right? So where in your own life you can from one day to the next decide, right, Dennis, I'll buy an electric car.
Yes.
Or where you can decide, and I love the comment of Rafia, to only use reusable Starbucks cups or whatever kind of cutlery or plates or cups. And whereas you can do that, you will see the consequence of that either not, or very little, or very slowly. And that's exactly what you're saying, Dennis. We don't have the consequence like this.
Yes.
I can get sick if I can get sick from something immediately, it will have a much stronger impact on my behavior, because it's gonna be like an immediate consequence for it, and almost like how do you call it, the salivating dog, conditioning, like a conditioning thing, where I can get conditioned because I have a negative impact of that If I get really, really drunk, I'll feel really bad the next day. So probably I'm gonna like learn my limits really fast if I do that a few times, right? But if I smoke and I feel okay, or I even feel good with it, and I don't have a negative consequence for many, many years, maybe, then I don't have that conditioning, and it's more difficult for learning to take place. And a plastic bag for my life only has a positive consequence. I can carry my things to my home in a very comfortable way, quick and easy, and it hasn't even cost me anything, right? I don't know how it's in the US. In Germany, luckily, the plastic bags cost something, and in all the countries where it costs something, and even if it's just 10 cents, you get that negative consequence, and people stop using it in a really huge percentage, like it goes down up to 90%. But in a place like here where you get it for free, it's even like a positive, twice, three times positive consequence. Of course, no one's going to stop using it. Why? There's no negative consequence that you can feel immediately.
Well, what I was thinking, and the reason I'm smiling is, so here there's many restaurants and stuff here in the United States, and what they've done is they've eliminated plastic straws and they've switched to paper straws of some sort. And
Abe, you know what? Those straws are really bad. Those straws are horrible. You know
this
what?
is exactly
They
what I was
dissolve,
bringing
right?
up.
They dissolve in your
I
mouth.
mean, what the hell is that, man? Try
Why do
sticking
we
that in an
even
ice cream
need
shake. It goes kaput.
straws?
I
Why
think
do we
that
need
what-
straws?
I think that what
Honestly?
happens is we try to do things, we try to take we try to make changes or implement changes, and so when you switch to the paper straws, it's really funny, because when you go on Yelp here in the States for certain restaurants, you'll find that as a complaint. Oh, these idiots switched to paper straws, and oh, the environmentalists, and it's just really funny to me.
Okay, Dennis, you mentioned something very, very interesting, and I'd like to build on it. You said stewardship. I don't think there is the steward. We're not good or bad stewards. I don't think 99.9% of the population even thinks that they're stewards, and they just their job is to hand this earth over to the next generation or to the future. We feel we're going to walk on this earth 60, 70 years, and we think those 70 years is like a huge time in the history of the earth, and we can do whatever the crap we want here. We don't realize that over the million or billion years, it's nothing. There's a book called Sapiens, which really touches this. In the history of the universe, even on the history of Earth, we're not even a blip. So my life is completely irrelevant and insignificant. I think that's a fantastic thing you mentioned. We, as humanity, need to understand we don't own Earth. The Earth doesn't need us, and we are just stewards of this for a very short period of time.
Yeah,
We're just here to do what we can and pass it on. That's it, and go ashes to ashes, dust to dust. That's all we are, man.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, actually, just an interesting thought around this, like. When I began to be into environmental topics, I was so distraught. Like I was so sad for Earth. I wanted to, I think a lot of people want to save Earth. And we had, at some point it clicked and I was like, we're not saving Earth if we're more environmental. We're just saving humans. Because what's going to happen if we destroy Earth? We're going to stop being alive or being able to live on Earth, and Earth, like nature, is going to recuperate without us.
As it has for many millions of years.
Yeah, exactly. So we're, like you said, we're so insignificant.
As it is doing right now. As it is doing right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I could, could just kind of jump into Rafia's question, stewardship, and I want you to go into this, but I'm a back to the basics guy, so let's break this down back to the basics. I was taught a concept early on in my life, which is that you, I'm going to try to clean this up. You don't poop where you eat, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is where we live. The Earth is where we live. It's interesting to me. In fact, I can get some pictures up here. I showed Sylvia where I went on my run yesterday morning, and it was, I think I had to do the conversion. It was 8 kilometers from the nearest road, and all kinds of dumping. All kinds of dumping. And so it's interesting to me, we were talking, my wife and I were talking, is this entitlement? Is it entitlement that people think that they can just go dump their stuff wherever they want? And it's interesting, why won't people take and dump all of that right in their own yard? Why do they go somewhere else? Because they don't want to poop where they eat. So it's okay that we destroy other people, but we want to make sure where I live is pristine.
Yeah, but see, it's again, I fully agree, 100%. You know, you throw the garbage in somebody else's house and it's all right. But again, it has to do with stewardship, because we really think that 60, 70 years of our life, we can just suck the. I'm sorry, I can't filter. I don't have a filter. We suck the shit out of this earth. We think, hey, it's cool. It's cool. We don't see the bigger picture beyond ourselves. What we don't realize is that the crap we produce and create right now is going to come back to bite us within our lifetimes. I mean, just look at the stupidity of a lot of countries and a lot of people being careless about COVID-19 in the early days, and look how badly it's hit them. It's killed thousands of people. And even if you stop the blaming bit, even today, now everyone is very clear what COVID-19 can do to you, yet people are fighting about, I want to get out, I want to party. What the hell's wrong with you, man?
Yeah. I don't want to wear the mask.
Because we feel that, just like smoking, we think, I'm not going to see the end of the earth. In my lifetime, I will not see the fruit of the seeds I've sowed. I'm not going to see the outcome of me sucking the oil out. I'm not, in my lifetime, I won't see earth collapse in my lifetime. What's the big deal? It's exactly like the smoking example you gave. So we need to understand, we need to shift our behavior and a mindset that, you know what, just as rapidly as innovation is happening right now, so destruction. We have exponentiated destruction, and in our lifetimes, we're going to see some crap, as we're seeing today.
I mean, it's already started. It's already started.
There you go.
We're already eating plastic. If you're eating fish, you're eating partly plastic. And we can't even be 100% sure how, like, even if it's not plastic, we're eating a lot of toxins in our fruits and veggies, and that's stuff we put out there. Like, that's the exhaust from your own car that you're eating in the apples that grow in the orchard right next to the street. That's the fertilizer. That's the how do you call it? The bug destroyer.
Pesticides, yeah.
The pesticides, thank you. That's all that, and we eat that. No, and we get sick. There's a lot more cancer than there used to be.
I agree, and I think I think part of it is when you look at gosh, and I'm going to forget the chemical name right now, but Roundup. We've made Roundup resistant, or we embed Roundup into our crops through the GMOs and that sort of thing. And I can just say for myself, if I eat a banana that's just grown regularly using pesticides, Roundup, versus an organic banana, like, it's night and day. With a regular GMO banana, like, my throat will swell. My throat swells up. I break out in hives. When I eat the organic banana, I don't. So I've had for me, I've had a very there it is, glyphosate. There it is. For me, I was able to kind of see it for myself, and it's very impactful. So I'll tell you, my philosophies on environmentalism really changed when when I was able to see a direct effect with me. So Sylvie, I guess my question is, how do we create behavior change? From a behavior change perspective, how do we, when we don't see the consequence immediately, how do we take and create behavior change so that we live in a more sustainable type of environment? Here in the U.S., the other thing I'd like you to talk about too, Sylvie, is here in the U.S. we have really tried to ramp up coal production, and what I find really interesting is that now that everybody's kind of off the roads, how beautiful our air looks. I'm seeing pictures from around the world where fish, aquatic wildlife are coming back into places that they had not been for a while. So, what are your thoughts on that? What's happening to the earth right now with everybody staying home?
And I think there's a, like, I don't know about you, but I see like a theme here. I see that over and over again, we're talking about the consequences, and for them, whether they're visible for us and palpable for us, whether we can feel them or not. And I think that's something that behavior change is actually using. It's actually in contrast to education, which is absolutely valid and has its place in trying to create a better world for us. Something that's very important is not only do I need to understand something, but I also need to feel something, and I need to be aware of what other people are doing and how what I do affects the others, and how they think about my behavior, and I need to be able to show the behavior that I need to show, and I need to not forget it. And so what I'm getting at is that there's more factors involved in changing behavior than there is in changing knowledge. You can change knowledge quite easily. You can change knowledge through what we're doing right now. When you talk to people, when you
Uh-oh.
Oh. She'll be back. I'm sure she's going to come back just now. Well, just to make sure we don't stay silent, Dennis, I want to add something here. We'll wait for Sylvie to come back. We were my sister's a doctor, and I was having a conversation last night with her. In Pakistan, still the number of cases, even though it's increasingly.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
But Dennis, remind me. I need to tell you about this one within the conversation.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned how you're taking bug busters, and how you're taking the COVID-19 did some damage in the industrialized world, which is very interesting. In the non-industrialized world, it creates such a havoc. So we'll talk about that in a bit. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, I was gone for a little bit. But what I was saying is that for us to change our behavior, there need to be more factors in place. And what we actually do, or other behavior change experts are doing, is that when we create campaigns or we create information or material for people to think about, we also address these other factors. We address social norms. We address attitudes, feelings. How do I feel about this? Like, look, there was a comment of somebody saying, it freaked me out just seeing the fish in the supermarket. That's a feeling. You didn't change your behavior because you read about the plastic in the fish, or how it's not good to consume fish and meat, and it's not environment. It was none of that. It was a feeling. He was freaked out. He was grossed out by it, and so he stopped. And so feelings can be very strong as a very strong factor in whether we change our behavior or not. And then another thing is the simple possibility of doing it. If I do not have bins in all the trail up the mountain, how likely am I to throw what I just used or what I have with me? Or how likely am I to actually take it with me and take it home? So if there's a few bins on the way, the likelihood that somebody throws it in a bin instead of in nature goes up incrementally. It goes up a lot,
That's really interesting.
I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure about that. Because you see, New Zealand, interestingly, has managed to beat COVID-19. One of the things in the study of how New Zealand did this, the moment they said, everyone shut down. To say it twice. In Japan, after the tsunami, there was no food, but people were still sharing food. It is just the core value. I see a lot of countries, I'm sitting in one, where it's virtually impossible. I've been shows on this for 15 years. It is virtually impossible to make people throw garbage in a bin which is there. You see these garbage dumps on the street, people would throw the garbage out of the dump but not in the dump. So, so what you're talking
about is the other factors. So it's never just, it's very rarely it's one factor that will bring you from 0 to 100. You have to factor in the other
Right.
things. Knowledge is one of the factors. Attitude or emotions is one of the factors. And then social norms, what you're talking about, the values, the culture I live in, what other people are doing, what I can see other people doing. What you're talking about,
Thank you.
if the bin is empty and everyone has thrown their garbage around that, I'm very likely to do the same thing because it shows me something. It tells me something about the social norm in this place. That is, everyone throws it
No.
next to the bin.
No, I'm from this very same culture. And you can at any time, if I'm traveling, right now I'm at home, I've got garbage bins everywhere. But if I'm traveling at any point, you hand in my pocket and you'll find, you can get my backpack, you'll find garbage. I carry my garbage the whole day. And in fact, I forget, even if I see a bin, I don't empty it. I only empty the garbage the next day when I'm refilling my bottle. So the thing is, it has to do with the core value. It has to do with if we want to bring behavior change, in my opinion, and I'll comment on it, if we want to bring behavior change, we'll have to start with children at the very core. Beyond the social norm, beyond the society, we have to start at the very core and inculcate heads, completely reinforced in steel, that they have a certain way, or nature will come back to bite you and destroy you.
Yes and no, yes and no, because I agree with you that when the other factors, that is your knowledge and your attitude, for example, are very strong, which you're talking about, because you've had that from your very early childhood on, you probably have very strong habits and a very strong commitment, which are also factors that factor into behavior change, then it overrides the social norm that you're seeing. But I'm always hesitant. Like, I don't like to only talk about changing our situation through children. I don't think that's their responsibility either. I think we need to focus right now on us, on our kind of generation, on the people that are making the decisions right now, on people that are influencing other people right now, not in 20 years. I don't want my daughter to be responsible to clean up all the chaos that we cause. I want to be part of the generation that makes the change. And it's possible to change at any age.
I like this.
Okay, now I did not want to hold the children responsible. You misunderstood. Maybe I'm just cynical, because I'll tell you what I deal with in a second. And my point is, this generation.
Why are you laughing, Dennis?
Well, I'm laughing because all I can hear is Whitney Houston singing in the background that children are our future. So.
Well, I don't even mean it that way. No, what I mean is the generation which is anything above 15 years old has been frozen. It's not going anywhere. No matter how hard I hit my head on the wall, it's not going to change. When I say we start teaching the next generation children, in 15 years, they would grow up better citizens. I don't want them to clean the mess. We can keep cleaning the mess, but people like us, or people like me, will keep creating a bigger mess. We need to create a world in the future which will not create a mess. I mean, cleaning up mess is ridiculous. You can't clean a mess which keeps growing forever. On your screen, you see pictures of a city I belong to, Karachi, one of the biggest cities in the world. It's the 8th or 9th biggest city in the world in population and size. And 30 years, at least for 20 years, I've been doing TV shows about getting rid of this garbage. It is virtually impossible to remove this garbage. It's impossible. And no matter how hard I try, I can't do it. So the only thing I've concluded is we need to educate the next generation, which will not create a mess. That's my...
I think we need to do both. I think we need to do both. Like, I think, yes, it's important to educate our children and to give them the ability and the ideas and the direction to say, look, if we do this, then we can solve this. But I don't agree with saying, okay, so all we have to do is educate our children and they're going to be able,
Oh, no,
then the solution is going to be found. No, things have to change right now. And I have to change my behavior, and I have to be conscious with Earth in every little detail in my day. Like the comment was before, in my reusable Starbucks cup, in the compass that I do with my leftover food scraps, in the way I have my garden, in the way I use transport, in the way I consume. The power to stop this is in our hands right now through our own behavior. It's hard to see it, I agree, because when you stop using plastic, it's not that that those pictures that you showed are going to disappear from today to tomorrow. But if you do it, how likely is it that somebody else will also do it? And if we all do it, then there will be no more plastic produced because we stopped using it. And not because the politicians or the companies or the whatever, it's because of us.
Absolutely. I take kind of a middle ground to this. I think I'm kind of in between both of you. And I think it's what everybody's kind of trying to say is just that like, it's important to do what we can do right now, but part of what we're doing right now is educating and training the next generation. And I'll tell you, like, as somebody, I had a very Americocentric attitude towards this. You know, when environmentalism first, I started hearing about it, people would talk to me, are you going to recycle? I'm like, no. Why would I recycle? And my comment, I would follow it up with, well, why would I do that? I'm actually creating jobs for my children. So I'll make the mess, and I'm creating a job for them to clean it up. And I'm like, that's a pretty common thought, Sylvie. Come on.
Wow. If you want your children to have to work in an absolutely toxic landfill to excavate our garbage, I would like my daughter to work in something else.
I came from an environment where, if you want me to recycle, you want me to turn my bottles in, you want me to turn my cans in, you need to pay me. Because that was a common practice over here in the States. Now I will say where my attitude has really changed is that I now ask myself the question of, do I want my children to have to clean this up? And the truth is no, I don't. And so again, that was just arrogance, and like I don't want to change. That was an arrogant attitude of mine. Whereas now, like I said, one of the things I really think about is, do I want to turn this world over the way it is? Do I want to turn this over to my grandkids? Is this the world because my boys are at the age of starting to have children, and that they're not yet, thankfully. We can wait on that. Boys, if you're watching, please wait on that.
That's the stewardship you're talking about. That's the stewardship you're talking about.
Is this, I live my life by three it's three really basic principles, which is that we take care of those who have come before us, we take care of those that are here now, and we make sure we leave a good environment for those that come after us. And regardless of whether that's work, that's family lifestyle, regardless of what that is, we want to take absolutely, it's essential that we take and care for those who come after this. Are we setting them up for success? Faisal?
In the past 40, 50 years, we have really become really horrible. I know Sylvie was trying to, soften the word. I'm gonna use it. It's not a disaster. We've been raping Earth for the past 40, 50 years since the industrial world kicked in, and I think this COVID-19 is nature's slap on our face that get in your houses, lock yourselves, get in the cage, and shut up. You're worthless. When we come out, I would like to go in that direction. When we come out, we need to reconsider our choices. We need to understand that we will have to do things because I think, God forbid, I hope I'm wrong, but like I said, since industrialization, innovation has exponentiated, so will the disasters. They will accelerate now. If we don't straighten ourselves up, the universe will try to correct us harder and harder now. And one of the things we need, not because our state is using a stick against us, not because it's law, because we need to understand that we are very finite, and our children and our next generation, even our old age. Sylvie said, right, we have to take care of our. Another scary thing which is about to probably happen in the next 20, 30 years is longevity. We'll probably live longer lives. Mortality will reduce with modern medicine, healthcare, stem cells and 3D printing and stuff like that. We might start living to 100, 150, 120, 110 on the average. Imagine the scary stuff we'll have to face based on our bad choices today.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the consequence that we were talking about that is not visible, or I don't care because it's not going to affect me, that becomes less and less likely. And it becomes more and more likely that you will have to live in a world that has to deal immensely with climate change, with pollution, with sicknesses related to pollution. And something that I was wondering, because I find it so impressive that if you look at the world, the whole world put health first. So we said, screw the economy, screw our social lives, screw fun, screw traveling. We're going to stay home, Earth. We're talking about like pretty much all the countries in the world. We're going to stay home and ride this out so that we can protect our health and each other, right? So we put health first, Earth-wide as humans, but then why don't we do that when it comes to pollution? Because pollution is not a matter of, oh, poor Earth and poor animals or whatever. It's pollution. I get sick from pollution. My neighbor chooses to use chemicals in his garden, and I can get sick, and my kid can get sick. So why are we not raising this? And I think that's also an opportunity right now to realize that, to say, okay, then let's make it a health issue. Let's make the environment a health issue, or let's show that it is a health issue if that's our number one priority as Earth, right?
I agree. I look at it as, environmental health is human health. To me, they are so intimately related and connected. I can't personally separate them. And so, I do think that, we have the economy matters. I mean, it does. I'm in a very, everybody knows where I live, and it's very capitalistic. Not judgmenting saying that, but it's interesting when we put profits over people. And we seem to kind of lose the balance a little bit. I'd like to kind of ask the question and just know, like, so Sylvie, like, as far as behavior change and, COVID, what's going on now, what can we do? Like, what are some behaviors that we can adopt into our lives? What are some behaviors we can bring into our lives that we can implement that actually promote sustainability? And even if we have to take a look at it from a selfish perspective of, what can I do that makes the environment better, because making the environment better makes me healthier? Thoughts?
Yes, plenty. And I think the first thing that I can tell from my work is that if I have to travel to do my job, can I think about doing that digitally? We had to do this now for, I think, almost 2 months. Workshops, meetings, talking with my colleague. Everything has been moved online, and it's been very possible in most cases. So that would be a great start if all the companies around the world, everyone who has to travel for their work, would say, you know what, this has worked. I don't want to go and be in a plane for 20 hours just so I can have one meeting of 2 hours with some other people. Why not do it all online? That will be a huge chunk of traveling that we can avoid. That's not even fun travel. That's just annoying travel that we can avoid and we can do differently. And then there's so much you can do in your daily life. Take the bicycle instead of the car. It's healthier, it's more fun, and it doesn't produce any gases, and it doesn't use petroleum. Avoid any kind of single-use plastics. Don't do single-use plastics. There is no reason for it in this time in our life, right? We can do it all with reusable cups, bottles, plates, cutlery, bags. It's all there. And if you have to use any sort of plastic, use plastic that's made from corn, from potato starch, from coffee grounds, do that. Like, if you just change your consumption in that, and if everyone does it who listens today, that's huge. We can have such a huge impact. We need to show companies that we don't want all this plastic anymore.
Yeah, and I agree, Sylvie. Thank you so much for that. And I just kind of wanted to address this one question that was just up there, which is that for throwing it away versus reusing. I think that's something very, very simple that most people can implement. If I drink out of this glass bottle, or I drink out of this plastic container, how many more uses can it get? So for me, I still do. There are certain things that I do use plastic for. However, like, before I dispose of it, I make sure that its life expectancy is long gone. As far as here in the States, getting away from the plastic clamshells and that are not recyclable. I should say they are recyclable, but most places don't have facilities to accommodate that. So I think that would be, as we're kind of wrapping up here, that would kind of be my one simple, like, back to the basics: reuse whatever you can. Reuse whatever you can.
It's the three R's. It's so basic. Like, reduce, say no to plastic and to non-biodegradable or toxically produced stuff. Reuse if you have to buy something that's plastic, and at the end of that, recycle. But the best is always to reduce. Let's change our consumption patterns, and that can have such a big influence.
Absolutely. Sylvie, thank you so much. FQ?
Yeah, one comment I was going to make earlier, and I'd like to throw it in here, like the conversation I was having with my sister yesterday. Industrialized world has really been hit, and the non-industrialized world has not been hit so bad. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and a lot of these countries where we still grow a lot of our food the old way. We don't have genetically engineered seeds. We use pesticides, but we don't have engineered food yet. So, our fruit doesn't look as good as yours. Our banana's not as big as the Chiquita bananas, but they're tastier and they're healthier. So I have a feeling that all the carcinogen the industrialized world has been eating has made their immune system weak, not just for cancer,
Preach.
but for any kind of pandemic, epidemic, disease like this one. I hope I'm not proven wrong. God forbid. May God protect us all. So far, looks like the countries where the quality of food is not as industrialized as the rest is actually doing better. Maybe our bodies, maybe our immune systems are fighting the situation better, and that could be a learning that we need to. Dennis, I'd like you to plug in your back to basics here. We need to go back to basics.
Yeah, to me, this is just always about getting back to the basics. And, we need to change the way we live. We need to change the way that we eat. We just really need to kind of really reevaluate our lifestyle. And, getting back to the basics is exactly what you're talking about, Faisal. It's about, let's look at what can I grow in my backyard? What can I take and buy from something local so that it's not shipped in? Those type of things. So we get away from, it's easy to go to the supermarket and grab a power bar or, something like that. And we'll say it's healthy. But then when you look at it and you read it, it's really not any different than the Snickers bar. We've just relabeled it. So I think we have to really pay attention to what we're doing and understand that everything we put into our bodies, it will have an effect in some way, shape, or form. So I like to live it with food. I live by the rule, which is that am I preventing disease or am I feeding it? And it's interesting that you talk about the industrialized world because we're having massive outbreaks in our meat.
Yeah.
So our commercial agriculture farming operations were having massive outbreaks of COVID, and everybody we're a little bit concerned about the supply chain and what's going to happen. So, but you can avoid a lot of that by purchasing local. The interesting thing, like here in the U.S., and I'll finish with this, is that I just know working with restaurants, I think it's about 60 to 65% of the food that's actually produced in the United States is not produced to go to the supermarket. It is produced to go to resorts, college, universities, cafeterias, hotels, that sort of thing. So it's just, yeah, we need to, for me, it's about reusing, repurposing, and recycling in all aspects of my life.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sylvie, for taking the time, and we hope we have you here again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Good night, guys.
Thanks for all
Take
the
care.
questions.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.